Let me know when you have to go.
Sounds good. We're live.
Okay. Yes, sir. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Spirit Journey, and who we have here today is a very interesting woman who has a story, compelling story to share. And I will give her the floor to share a quick cap about who she is, and then we're going to go deep into part one about her childhood, where she's from, and what happened to her.
Hi, my name is Rainetta Jones. I think some of you have seen me around the internet somewhere. I don't know. My background: I was born in the Caribbean, Trinidad and Tobago. I left the Caribbean when I was 14, and I came to the United States. I went to high school at Martin Luther King Junior High School for 3 years. I graduated 1 year early. And then I went to university at Buffalo. And I'm very honest, at university well, in my high school, I started to experience neurological issues. And we're going to get back to that prior to me coming to the United States. And then after me coming to the United States, let me just push this back a little bit. Okay, so then I went to university at Buffalo. At the university at Buffalo, I wanted to study molecular microbiology. They didn't have those fields in the university, but the dean said to me, if I pull the grades, then they can create a curriculum for me. From the moment I had that meeting with the dean, I started to experience terrible neurological problems. And at the time, I thought, okay, maybe it's fatigue. Maybe, I was, tired, which is fatigue, or, maybe, something was wrong. So I did not do well the first two semesters. So I said to myself, I said, you know what, maybe I'll do a study abroad program. And funny enough, I did a study abroad program in England, which is in Sheffield in England, which is 10,000 times more difficult than the University of Buffalo. So think about it. I wasn't doing well at the University of Buffalo, but then I went to the University of Sheffield. And at the time, the University of Sheffield was ranked one of the top 10 universities in England, in the UK, in Europe. Sorry, not England, in Europe. So when I went to the University of Sheffield, whatever it was that was causing the problems followed me to Sheffield. But at the time, I didn't know what directed energy weapons were targeting, none of these things. Okay. So, I just thought, okay, something's wrong. Anyway, I didn't do well at all at Buffalo, and I didn't do well at all at Sheffield. But then when I came back to New York, it was interesting because as soon as I arrived in New York, literally when I hit the ground in New York, I was inundated at the time. And this is just my life story. I'll tell you, wrap it up in like 3 minutes. At the time, I was literally inundated with model scouts telling me, giving me their card and telling me that I need to model. Like literally everywhere I went, this is what was happening. So I said to myself, I said, you know what? Why not? Let me take a break from school because I don't know what's going on, why I'm having these problems. So I said, why not try modeling? I never thought in a million years, about modeling. So I said to myself, why not try modeling? So I did. I did that for literally 2000 to 2005. As you know, the modeling industry, a person could literally be, while I work part-time, by the way. And during that time, while I was modeling, I also invented some products right after I came back from England, which I shared, and I really don't want to go through that again. Okay, you guys can I can tell you about other things that I invented that I just, these people are just crazy. But so the inventions came right after I came back from England, which I mentioned that story before, right? Around the time when I started modeling. Right. So when I was in the modeling industry, which lasted a while, modeling is one of those things, just like acting, where you do a lot of stuff just to get just to be seen. It's real. It's really a big scam. Okay, because you're ending up like in magazines. This is the first time I've ever shared these kinds of things on camera, and I'm just thinking to myself, should I share this? But anyway, so in short, modeling is one of those things where you're seen a lot. Like, if you make it to, hold on, if you make it to like magazines, which I did a lot of, if you made it to runway, which I did a lot of, but when you're starting out, you don't really get paid. Okay. You really don't. It's just like to be seen, to get, accustomed to being, unless you're with an agency. Okay. And one of the reasons why, and I look back and I'm like, my targeting could have been from so many angles, So one of the things I, about the agencies, because I had quite a few agencies that wanted me because you had that look, whatever that means, they wanted me to lose more weight on top of the weight that I already was. And I was already like a size 2. Okay. Like, I kid you not, I was just real thin. I was very skinny. And it was like maybe 130 pounds, maybe 120 to 130 pounds. And they wanted me to lose 20 pounds more. Okay. Which I was just like, I'm not doing this. This is crazy. If I lose any more weight, I'm going to disappear. I was already like that skinny, Anyway, so that's that. I met several I met a lot of influential people. Let me just leave that there. But you're muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I yes, I definitely want to know more about the your modeling days, because that could be when a lot of targeting could have happened.
It
And
was
I remember you mentioned something about Peter Yegard, something like that.
Nygaard.
Yeah, Nygaard, yeah, Peter Nygaard. And so when we go, we're going to talk a little bit about your earlier days in Trinidad, and then we're going to go forward. And I definitely I want us to cover more about the modeling experience for you, because I think a lot of that has to do with selecting uh, candidates,
Genetics.
you know, definitely. So, so going to your time in Trinidad, um, I
Is
would
there
like,
any specific questions? How about you ask me specific questions?
yes,
Yeah.
the question I would like to know. You mentioned that you had gone to this school, and they did they select you for this program? You mentioned about a program. Uh,
Yeah, so that was the molecular microbiology. At the time, my university was the top university in biochemistry. Okay.
in in Trinidad.
No, this is the United States.
Yeah, I'm in Trinidad. I want to talk about first your beginnings to try to see if there's a pattern of, and not things that are, if something is too personal to discuss. I want to respect your
Okay,
background
let me
and all
tell you
that.
where this started. When I was 13, let me backtrack. When I was between the ages of 9 and 13, it wasn't 13 yet. I was in my room and I was by myself in my room when I had a visitation. Let me just move this back a little bit. I was in my room and something came into my room. Now, growing up in the Caribbean, we know about what we call jumbi, moko jumbi. Americans call them ghosts, Jamaicans call them duppy, yada yada, right? It came into my room. Obviously, it wasn't a jumbi because it wasn't negative, but it told me, when you grow up, do not have children. You will understand when you get older. And like I mentioned many times, that's the reason why I never had children. And I always kept that in the back of my head. Fast forward to when I was 13. I, unlike my girlfriends, had my menstrual cycle at 13, while most of them had it at 11 and 12, right? And in between my first menstrual cycle and my second menstrual cycle, I had it wasn't really a menstrual cycle, but I had some kind of encounter. I distinctly remember going to sleep on a Thursday afternoon because I was feeling drowsy. I was feeling tired for some reason. And I said to myself, I remember saying to myself, oh, okay, tomorrow is going to be Friday and then it's the weekend. So I was excited that the next day was Friday, which means that that day was Thursday. So sure enough, I go to sleep and I remember it was daylight when I went to bed. Okay. I woke up on a Sunday with a family member literally shaking me off the bed. And when I got up, I immediately like looked down like, oh my God, because I woke up in a pool of blood. And I remember that family member shouting out to my aunt, and I don't mind sharing this. Rain just woke up and she's in a pool of blood. So my aunt, which was strange because my aunt was very, very strict about cleanliness, especially cleanliness for girls, because I was the only girl among boys. So she was very, very strict when it came to female hygiene, like very particular, from start to finish, how a girl should keep herself, right? Very old school type, type woman, but So anyway, so when I woke up, I distinctly remember my aunt saying, tell Rain to go and take a shower and wash the sheets. So I got up and cleaned the bed. So I got up, I did that. And then after I took a shower, I noticed that my period in between my period disappeared. Now, when I woke up and I realized that it was Sunday, I said to myself, I said, hold on. How is it Sunday? And when I went to sleep, I remembered saying, I have one more day of class, which was Friday. And I said, today's Sunday. Then I said to myself, I said, hold on. Growing up in the Caribbean, whenever there's a girl, the girl's job is to keep the inside of the house clean. And the boy's job are to keep the outside of the house clean. That's how, chores were organized. And I said to myself, I said, hold on. I said, now, if you knew my aunt, there's no way in hell my aunt would let me sleep Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and waking up on Sunday. Because who's going to clean the house for those 4 days? Okay? Well, yeah, 4 days because it was Thursday afternoon. Okay? Or, some would say 3 days, but whatever. I woke up in the afternoon on Sunday, so daytime. So these were things that was in my head. Like, I was asleep from Thursday to Sunday afternoon. Who cleaned the house? What, my aunt let me sleep from Thursday to Sunday? I'm like, this is crazy. And if you knew my aunt, you knew that you couldn't question her. You know what I mean? Because she was one of those very old school, strict type people. And children don't really, you couldn't have like a conversation with her because the lines of adult and children were very clear. Okay, so you couldn't speak to my aunt the way children speak to their elders today at all. She was old school Caribbean. Okay, so these were the things that were in my head and in my body that I didn't know were there. And I didn't know what my aunt was involved in. And that happened when I was 13. At 14, I can't hear you. You're muted.
Do you think your aunt, thank you. Do you think your aunt was involved in
Yes.
opium? Okay. And do you think that
I
she
don't
might?
think I know.
Okay. Do you think that she might have?
Yes.
So I'm just going to say it.
Mm,
I also lived in the Caribbean,
mm,
and my background is also Caribbean, but I was born and raised in the United States. My grandparents migrated to America
mm,
90 plus years ago.
mhm,
Um, well, and I had an opportunity to live in the Caribbean, and unfortunate what could happen in the Caribbean and other places around the world that sometimes people may uh,
mm,
sell their
mm,
females for
mm,
money or whatever, or power if they're into obia, witchcraft,
mm.
and being that you seem like a very orderly person, you know your body, and to be asleep for or unaware for not having recollections for 3 days
I was
and
asleep.
wake up in a pool of blood. um, were you examined by a physician, and did they care about, I mean, did they send you to a doctor to make sure that you weren't hemorrhaging?
No,
Okay. Did you ask? Did you ask her anything? How is that you were sleeping for 3 days and you didn't wake me up?
I mentioned that my aunt was old school
Oh yeah,
Caribbean. There
yes.
was a line of demarcation between adults and children.
Oh yes,
In America, a child could wake up in the same situation and say, Mommy, look, this happened to me. In the Caribbean, you don't.
yes. I understand that power dynamic, and it
Yeah.
was like that in my household as well. So
Mm,
I can relate to all that.
yeah.
But like being a young female, and
Mm,
you awaken, so there was no. There, she
mm.
didn't
No,
mention that she tried to wake you up or that she thought you were
no,
sick.
it was over. It was get
Okay,
up,
okay,
clean up the bed, clean the sheets, clean yourself, move
mhm,
on.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
And you did mention that in a prior video,
Mm,
again, not to mention names or anything like that,
mm,
that someone else occupied the same home.
mm.
Um, do you think maybe um, one of the males in the house might have?
No penetration. No. Mm-mm.
Okay. Yeah, I hate
And
to,
I can no, 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 no. Number one, no. Number two, the reason being is because when I became an adult and I actually had sex,
hmm.
my hymen broke.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So no, that wasn't it.
I see. So what
There's,
is your,
there's another reason why I know it's not it, and I'll explain it later.
okay.
Right?
Um, what about your, if you we should talk about your genetics. You did mention about the modeling and that they like your look, and again, being a woman from the Caribbean, what is your heritage? I'm trying to see if there's any correlation between, are they targeting certain types of Caribbean women? Maybe they might know what part of uh, where your origins are from. I'm just trying to pinpoint any correlation so that if any other Caribbean person or indigenous person is might be facing the same thing, maybe that there's similarities.
Yeah. So the American part of my blood, and I want to emphasize because people are absolutely ignorant about the Caribbean and about the American original people. The assumption, which is a fallacy, is that the original people in the Americas have a particular look. And that particular look could be brown, more on the light brown side with straight black hair. That's one categorization. The other categorization, which they work overtime to hide, are the ones who look like me. However, the ones who look like me, my color, they just don't have my nose. The only difference between me and them is that their noses are more robust, meaning their noses are wider. Okay? And they were called the Caribs in the Caribbean. The Caribs were the actual people where you get the term Caribbean. Caribbean. It came from this tribe called Caribs, and they looked like me. Now, a modern example of what the Caribs would look like as a people group were the original people in Australia. That is exactly what they look like. The thing is, they didn't come from Australia, right? So the Carib people and I, myself, have a mark on my body that only specific Carib women are born with this mark, meaning it's not scarification. Scarification meaning you go through some sort of initiation, and during or after the initiation, they scar you and make you a part of the tribe. Okay, I went through no scarification. I was born with the mark. Okay, and this mark represented a particular group in the Carib line, and this mark is only transferred to the women. The problem is that the Carib elders who would know what this mark means, and like I said, you don't get this in an initiation. You are born with it. So I am pure bloodline Carib. That is one of the branches. Now, I can go into a little bit of detail about the relationship between these Caribs and a particular group in Africa, which is where I think there could be some sort of targeting, because the Caribs were in fact targeted. Mm-hmm.
So tell us, what does this mark, where is the mark on your body, and could you show it to us?
No, I'm not disclosing where the mark is, and I'm not showing the mark.
Okay. And what does the mark look like?
It looks like a typical scar. Like people would think, oh, did you get into an accident? No, it's not an accident.
Yeah, I mean, like, is it like a pet, like is it like a gash, or is it like a
No, it
spot?
doesn't go down. It keloids just a little bit above the skin. Like usually, like most scarification, keloids.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you were born with a keloid mark.
Yeah, but it's not like a strong keloid where it's projecting really, really large above the skin. It's just a light keloid above the skin.
And what part of the body is this?
I'm not going to disclose.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay.
Mhm.
And
But what I can say is that the women, only particular women bear this mark. Not every woman in the Carib tribe bears this mark. Only particular women bear it. But when the mark appears, it appears on different parts of the body, and they're born with it. So it's not through initiation.
does your mother or aunt have this mark?
They're not here, but what I will say is only women in a particular line in the Carib tribe are born with this mark, but the mark does not appear in the same place. So because they're not here, I'm not going to speak for them.
I see. I
Yeah.
see. Did your parents, your mother or your aunt, did they share with you about this Carib Indian ancestry? What else did they share with you about? Did they warn you about anything about this heritage? What did they say?
Here's what I will say. Because we didn't grow up, now the Carib tribe still thrives in Trinidad. And they're around the like Lopino, Arima area, right? And every year people go to the Carib festival and they have their Carib queen, which they do. Okay. The in-depth knowledge of the Carib people, okay, the in-depth knowledge of the Carib people, you have to go and live with them to get that knowledge. They're not going to outsource that and give you that knowledge. Like you'll find a couple of words here. You will find their cuisine, okay, which is what we usually eat around Christmas time, right? You will find their cuisine inculcated into the Trinidad culture, right? Pastels, that's one of their food traditions, right? Lap, which is a wild meat, agouti, another Carib word, which looks like a rat if you ask me, but no offense. this is what you will find, that the lap and agouti, these are wild animals that they eat. Okay, and they still eat it to today. Carib food is actually really, really, really amazing. But you're not going to find the traditions outside of the Carib community. And here's what I'm going to say. Years ago, when I was young, the last surviving Carib Obia man, I went to go see him. But I didn't, and I asked him to tell me my future. I was young, and I was like, before I was 14, and I asked him to tell me my future. But I didn't know the tradition was you had to bring like a gift, like liquor or some sort of gift. So I didn't money, liquor, something, and I didn't know. So I apologized to him. But I never got the answer because I didn't bring a gift, because that's standard procedure. So that guy, that African shaman, the Carib gatekeeper, I'm not going to call him an Obia man, but the gatekeeper of the spiritual mysteries of the Carib people, he died with that knowledge. I don't know if they have, I haven't been to that region. I don't know if they have, if they kept or preserved the knowledge. One of the things I'll tell you about Trinidad is that they're actually terrible about preserving culture. What I can say, this is just a comparison and an observation. Trinidad should do more to preserve authentic Trinidadian culture, authentic Trinidadian language, dialect, and culture. When it comes to, like, as an example, there are many things that Trinidad excels at that other islands don't. And then there are things that other islands excel at that Trinidad doesn't.
Okay.
And one of the things is preservation of culture. And I think in terms of preservation of culture, Jamaica does that better.
Okay. Yeah. My other question with your time in Trinidad, I just have my notes here below. Did you belong to any clubs or organizations in Trinidad that might have introduced you or get you targeted in the first place?
Targeted? No. I think I know for a fact that my targeting came from my aunt, who I lived with. And that, I strongly believe, had to do with the fact that she was involved in Obia.
Okay.
Because spirits know no different, no distance. And this is why I advise people, be very careful with Obia.
Was she taught Obia by...
Pardon?
I'm sorry to interrupt. Was your aunt... was she taught Obia by maybe her ancestor, her own mother?
I have no idea. I honestly don't know how. I do not know how she got into it. All I can tell you is about my experience and what I discovered years later, that she was involved in Obia. And that's why when I discovered she was involved in Obia, my mind immediately went back to when I was 13. And I went to sleep for 3 days or whatever, and then woke up in a pool of blood. And no, it wasn't a sexual assault. It was an alien intervention. Because in the Caribbean, they call ETs jumbies.
Yeah.
And to them, jumbies are spirits. But then when you get older and you realize these things aren't spirits. These things are physical entities that can, move through time and space. They're not jumbies. They're ETs.
Did any of your people that you lived with... Stop that. I'm sorry, my daughter. Did anyone else in your family encounter any of these jumbies?
Okay, let's backtrack. I don't speak for anyone in my family. I only speak for me. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
Let me just see here my other questions here. I'm going to go a little forward now. What age did you leave Trinidad and enter the USA for the first time? And what were the circumstances of you coming here?
Well, the age I left Trinidad, I mentioned before, was 14. And I came to the United States because my family moved to the United States.
Mm-hmm. And your family, meaning like your mother and father?
I don't speak about family. I only speak about me.
Okay. So so I assume that you lived with family at least when you came to the U.S.
I don't speak about family.
Right. Okay. And what was the transition like for you to come from Trinidad to the US? What type of adjustment did you have when you arrived?
First, it was culture shock because when I
Okay.
came here, I went to high school and I was shocked that American schools were so casual with adult child relationships,
Hmm.
meaning that if a person wanted to use the restroom, they don't put their hand up, they just get up and walk out. If a child didn't like what an adult said, they could answer them back. That was, I went through severe culture shock. The other thing that I went through, which is why I had to go into remedial courses when I first came, is language shock. Because American English and Caribbean English, Caribbean dialect and Caribbean school English were different. So I had a hurdle where I had to overcome the American lingo, and not just the American lingo, but Black Americans had a very distinct type of patois that I didn't speak. I spoke a Trinidadian type patois. So I had to do the crossover where I could understand American, African American, or Black American patois. I'm not sure what's the correct term, right? African American patois, and also American Standard English, right? And, like, for example, we spell words differently, so I was on the British spelling. I had to abandon the British spelling for the American spelling, and then the pronunciation of words were different, So these are some of the hurdles that I had to overcome, especially when I went into math and sciences, because I couldn't understand what was being said. But within a couple of, I think like one remedial course, it clicked. And then I was literally catapulted into honors classes. And I think that's where, the targeting in America began. No, let me rephrase that. I know the targeting in America began. Yeah.
I see. Now, so you did mention before in prior videos that a lot of this targeting you feel started at when you went to Martin Luther King School that's in Manhattan. Um, do, um, do you think it might have been,
You're in New York.
excuse me?
I said, you're in New York.
Yes, that's how you hear.
That noise.
So do you think that, what was it a specific teacher you think in hindsight that might have noticed you and propelled you
Yeah.
into okay
Yeah, I
what's
know exactly the teachers. But I don't think the teachers did it on purpose. I honestly don't. Oh, maybe I'm wrong. But now we know that Black schools are targeted to get the Black children into prison. So we don't know who in the schools are involved in behavior modification. But what I do know is that my school was involved in secret government programs, especially behavior modification. But here is what I will say. When I went from remedial English, because I couldn't break through the language barrier. So I went from remedial English and math straight to honors once I broke the language barrier, right? All my classes were honors classes. And I excelled in those classes until I was set. And this is one of the things that really pissed me off, and it took me a long time to get over this. Now, my high school was built in a neighborhood where the tribe dominated. It was a tribe neighborhood. And at that time, the tribe were not allowed on the upper west side. Not too many of them. The upper east side, was white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. And not too many tribe members were allowed on the upper east side. So the tribe members built their tribal community on the upper west side. My high school was built on the upper west side. There was a lot of resistance by the tribe members in that community to a Black high school being there. And I distinctly remember this because I remember some of the teachers who had a conscience would tell us, children, be on your best behavior when you leave the schools because they don't want you children in this community. And I distinctly remember saying to myself, because when I was new to the United States, I didn't understand racism. I came from a country where they would drill into your head, we have to live as one. And if there was, in fact, discrimination, the discrimination was between Blacks and Indians in Trinidad, which was fomented by the British. Okay, that was a tactic used by the British whenever they had to cede territory. So back to the tribe and the tribe members. I distinctly remember my teachers, the ones with a conscience, they used to tell us all the time, whenever you leave the school, be on your best behavior because they don't want you guys in this neighborhood. And they were constantly opposing that school in the neighborhood. So I always used to say in the back of my head, I said, but this doesn't make any sense. This is a wealthy neighborhood. Why would you build a Black high school in a wealthy tribe neighborhood? And the people in the community don't want the school here? I said, you're setting the children up to be I didn't say targeted, but I said, in my mind, in my child's mind, I'm like, you're setting us up. Because if the people in the community don't want us here, and we were right next to LaGuardia, which is where tribe members and non-tribe members who were extremely wealthy, because they were extremely wealthy in that neighborhood, tribe and non-tribe members sent their children. So our little Black high school was right next to the premier arts school in the country, where wealthy tribe and non-tribe members sent their non-Black children. So Asians who look Caucasian and Caucasians and tribe members sent their children, to LaGuardia. And then, predominantly Black, poor, working class, Hispanic working class, and some Southeast Asians who were not rich sent their children to my high school. Okay. Now, here's the crazy part. My high school, do not let anyone tell you that the children in my high school were underperforming. That's not what I remember. The children in my high school was overperforming, especially in the law department. They were one of the top schools for legal debates. Little Black children whose family come from African American communities and whose families came from Caribbean and Africa. They were the #1 school in terms of law debates, okay, and one of the best law schools in the city. They X'd that program, okay? Not only that, in terms of sports, my high school was the best high school over 10 years in the entire country for football, aka American soccer. Now, when I was in high school, my math teacher, I had a strong proficiency in math. And when I tell you strong, I mean above and beyond normal. To the point, my math teacher, it was honors math I was in, she said to me, she said, Rainetta, your math capabilities, it doesn't make sense. And I said to her, why? She said, it's as if you solve the problem in your head, work the problem backwards, work the answer to the problem. How are you doing this? So unbeknownst to me, because I was trained in math the British way, because I grew up in the Caribbean. And at the time when I was growing up in the Caribbean, the literacy rate, okay, and the math equivalent in the Caribbean at the time when I was there was above 98%. That is little Black children and Indian children. Okay. So what was I saying? I remember my math teacher saying to me, Rainetta, the Regents is coming up. So one of the things she would have me do was she would have me tutor the class, okay? And she said to me, she pulled me to the side and she said, Rainetta, the math Regents is coming up. I'm going to speak to the principal on your behalf. So I was like, why? She goes, because I need the school to support you in taking, when you take the math Regents. So I said to her, okay, you know why? She said, because you're going to ace that Regents. I didn't forget this and I didn't make this up. I lived it. Now I remember when the Regents came, I finished it in like less than 10 minutes. And in those days, the Regents, the math Regents, it was 2 parts. Similar type questions, different actual questions, but they were similar in nature. And you had a choice. You did part A or part B. You could not hand in both. That's how the Regents were structured. Anyone can go back and look it up. The math Regents when I was in high school. I finished the entire Regents, but my teacher said, Rainetta, you could only hand in 1. So I said to her, I said, but that's strange. How come she told me she was going to talk to the principal, but the principal never spoke to me. By the way, the executive level of my high school were all tribe members. Okay? In my high school, where there's a black cube on 66th Street with a face of a black person, and the left eye of the black person has microchips in the eyes, a barcode on top of the head, barcodes here, okay? The right tooth has a chip, microchip, okay? The whole left side of this black cube that looks like a face is cybernated. Let me get this story out, right? I'm almost done. So I did the entire Regents exam. So when I went to hand it in, she said, Rainetta, you have to pick either A or B. You can't submit both. I don't remember which one I submitted and which one I rejected. But I said to her, let's say hypothetically, I said, okay, a grade A, okay, she's going to grade the whole thing. But I said, let A count as my grade. So I was expecting them to say, okay, Rainetta, you aced the Regents, you got 100%, and now the state is going to recognize you as the top student because that's what she told me. She said, Rainetta, you're going to ace the state math Regents, and you're going to be the #1 math student in the state in a school that was run by tribe members with a black cube on 66th Street on the southwest side of 66th Street. When the test results came back, this is what she said to me. She said, Rainetta, a strange thing happened. Now let me tell you, never did I ever get less than 98. Ever. Okay? Ever. When the results came back, she said to me, Rainetta, what did you do? I said, what do you mean, what did I do? She goes, the part of the test you submitted was 73. I looked at her, I said, 73? That's impossible. I said, we do this every day. I tutor the students every day. She said, but the part you omitted was 100%. I'm so sorry you didn't ace the state Regents. From that day, that's when I started experiencing brain scrambling.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're saying that you submitted part A, but let's say the test had 20, I'm just saying 20 questions.
Yeah.
You only answered 10 and left the remaining 10.
No. You don't understand how I operated with math. I answered all 20,
okay,
but I could only submit 10 towards my grade. So I had to choose part A 10 or part B 10. You see? Mm-hmm. So let's say hypothetically I submitted A. She said, oh my goodness, A was 73%, but B that you did, but you didn't submit, it was 100%. Rainetta, what happened?
Someone's playing games. Doesn't make sense. It's foolish. So either way.
How do you go from 100 and they were the exact same type of math questions?
Wow. I want to ask you something else. That was very interesting. How they try to set up some people to excel and some not to excel in the public school system in New York City. It's very corrupt. Um,
And then they, and then this is the part you have to get. At the time, I didn't know what was happening to me because I knew nothing about directed energy weapons. As soon as I was in math, English, math, science, sorry, honors English, honors science, honors math, honors English. I think I mentioned English, okay? After I took that math regents, that's when I started experiencing brain scrambling. I didn't know what the technology was. Basically, every time I would look down on the page, I would read, and nothing stuck. And that happened to me right after I took the math regents. This is how wicked New York City is. I absolutely hate that city. And I'm saying on camera, I would not cry if it sank under the Atlantic Ocean. I am being serious, because to do this to a child is beyond wicked.
Now let's go even further. Now, when you reach the United States, here you excelled in your studies, and then they kind of trip you with the Regents exam. But you mentioned in a past interview that you don't recall, you have missing time with regard to lunch, and that please elaborate about what the implications could have meant with this time lost during school.
Okay, before we get to the missing time for lunch, because at the time I didn't realize I had missing time for lunch. But what we can talk about was that I was also on the track team. So not only was I in honors, I was also on the track team. Now, when I was running on the track team, I was a sprinter then. Okay, I wasn't a middle distance runner and I wasn't a long distance runner. I was pretty fast, so they had me on the sprint team. I'm going to tell you what happened to me at the pen relays, okay? What happened during the pen relays. And this is when I began to realize, I said, oh my God, I just thought it was just bad luck. Let me tell you, but before I get to the pen relays, let me tell you what happened. So at the age of, I think it was 15, we had the indoor track meet. This could have been 15 or 17, but I think it was 15. No, it was 15. It was 15. The indoor track meet in the Armory in Harlem. So you would know this, right? And there was an indoor 55-meter dash. I hope I'm getting this right because it's so long. I think outside is the 50-meter dash. Outdoors in the spring, it's the 50-meter dash. Indoors is the 55-meter dash because the track is staggered. So anyway, there were several heats before the finals. It was the state championship, okay? And I was in the second to last. We ran until you ran down the numbers for everyone for the final state championship, okay? And I distinctly remember I was in the second to last heat, the last heat before the final indoor track heat for the indoor 55-meter dash, okay? Or the 55-yard dash. I really can't remember, but I think they still have it at the Armory. This is what happened to me. I was running that race. God is my witness if I'm lying, okay? God is my witness if I'm lying. I was winning that race, okay? And when I say winning, I mean winning. Like I was here and the rest of the women were here in a 55-meter dash. Okay? That's not normal. For the last heat before the state championships, I distinctly remember, I will never forget this. I felt a ball, invisible, moved towards me and it blasted me on my left side. And I fell right before the finish line. My coach, I remembered him screaming, Rainetta, Rainetta, touch the finish line. And the reason why I knew there was a significant amount of distance between me and the other runners is because I still had time to touch the finish line and win before they even crossed it. But the way they hit me with this ball of energy that hit me on my left side, I fell and I balled up. So I couldn't reach for the finish line. I was balled up. He ran on the field. My other, the other athletes on the team, my friends, ran on the field and they helped me up. They called an ambulance. It was shut down until they took the ambulance and they got me up off the field. This is what I remembered. I remembered myself. We got into the back of the ambulance. I remembered, and I'm trying to find this hospital that did this to me. I remember the ambulance pulled up and there was a wall. Okay? And then the EMS or EMT said, we're here. And I don't remember anything else after that. Now, these track meets were in the daytime because it was children under 18 years old. The next memory I had was I heard ding, ding, which was the old number 2 train with the gray seats. Those were the seats that were like this, facing each other. So when you sat on these seats, you'd be facing the people in front of you. Okay? I remember hearing ding, ding, and all of a sudden I came back to consciousness 2 stops from my house. I was 15 years old. When I got off that train, it was night outside. I had to walk in the dark from the number 2 train station, 25, to my house. Of course, when I got home, my family was like, where the hell were you? They didn't call my track coach. The hospital did not call my family to let them know that your underage child is in a hospital somewhere in Manhattan. Okay? Yeah.
Very, very odd. They weren't following protocol. What year did this happen around?
I was 15, so that was 1995.
Okay.
Oh,
now,
not to mention, they never send. Do you know a hospital in the United States that doesn't send a medical bill for medical procedures? There was none, ever.
so I want to make sure I understood this right. So you're saying you're at the track field, you're just about to cross the finish line, and then you get
I was
zapped.
winning the heat.
You were winning the heat.
Yes.
And then they zapped you. You
They
killed.
blasted me. I wasn't zapped. I was blasted. Yeah.
You were blasted.
I was blasted, and I suffered a torn ligament. So bad that it changed me from a sprinter to middle distance runner. The injury was so bad that I could not sprint after that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, okay. So you get to so the ambulance came, and the one of the people announces something, and then
the EMS said, we're here. I saw the wall. This hospital has a huge wall before you enter. Mm-hmm. I remember that because I remember seeing the wall. Mm-hmm. And then he said, we're here. And then I went blank. There was nothing.
Did they had an IV on you or something? Were you given an IV?
I don't remember.
The ride over to the hospital. Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Did you talk to when you returned back to school? Did your teammates mention anything to you about the incident?
No, I was just off the track team for a couple of months because I couldn't even walk. It was that bad, the injury.
Wow.
I told you the injury was so bad, it changed me from a sprinter.
I
You
see.
know what it takes to change someone from sprinting to middle distance runner?
So what part of which leg and what
The
part of
ligament, left
the
side ligament, which is exactly where the microchip and weapon systems are in my body, from the brain to my pelvic area, to the lower part of my stomach, all the way down to the left side under my ankle. The entire left side of my body is cybernated with government technology and alien technology. So government alien technology and then pure alien technology.
So do you think that that's when you got implanted, you believe, but when you entered that hospital at that time?
Yes. And I believed they needed to get me to that hospital. Now, I was implanted when I was 13 by aliens.
Okay, back
I
in
believe
Trinidad.
when I came to the United States, you got to go through scanners. They saw the technology in my body, but they needed a reason to put government technology in my body. And I think what the government was doing is I came to the United States and they're like, okay, this girl is passing through our system, because you got to get scanned coming through the airport, right? She's passing through our system. This is what I'm surmising. We're seeing technology in her body. It's the US government. They're gonna want to know what it is. So I believe they originally, what they did is, we need to get a reason to put her into, we need to get have a reason to put our technology into her.
Wait,
That's where it originally started.
for clarity. Okay, now you had the alien implant in Trinidad,
13
and
years old.
at the when you're 13 years old,
Yeah.
and that possibly could have happened at the incident where you were asleep for 3 days and you
Yeah.
had that trauma.
Yes.
Then when you coming into the U.S., the scanners that they used detected some type of technology,
Yes.
and that was a red flag, you think?
Yes.
And then they, in essence, followed your activities
Which is what the US government does. Yes.
at your current high school,
Yes.
and that when they saw that you were excelling, they dumbed you down, so to speak, with
Yeah,
the
they started to injure me little
yeah,
at a time on the left hemisphere of my brain.
yeah. Interesting. To your left side
Yeah.
of your brain, and the
That's what
left
you need for
side
math and science.
and the left side of your body when you were running. So it's
Yeah.
interesting.
And then the left side is where your organs are. Yeah.
Interesting. Very,
So it
very.
was, yeah, they knew what they were doing, including the ETs.
Now, do you have the alien implant? How big is it, and where is it located on your body?
Okay, so when I went to get scanned, right, the first scans, what the anomalies they discovered was that my eyes are purple. Okay, normal people have blue eyes, they have brown eyes, they have green eyes, they have hazel, yada, yada, yada. Mine are purple. Okay, so that in and of itself, I think is something that certain factions of the government are probably interested in.
When you said purple, I want to make sure when you say
My eyes are light purple. When you hold up an infrared light,
okay, yeah,
blue light, sorry, under my eyes, they shine purple. They should be brown.
okay. I just wanted to clarify that because I
Yeah.
see brown eyes, and so when
Yeah.
you use a particular device on you,
Which should reflect brown eyes.
yeah. And what is this device called that they use for your
It's
eye?
called oh God, I have the reports. I'm sorry. I'll get it. I'll put it in the comment section when I go
It's
find
okay.
it. Yeah.
Mhm.
But when they scanned it, they said, "Oh my God, your eyes are purple." Okay. And I'm like, "Purple? That's impossible." They said, "No, your eyes are purple." Okay, in two places. So when I had a second scan done,
When you said the scan in Trinidad or the scan in the USA?
in the US, they don't have this technology in Trinidad. Okay. when I had a second scan done, and this one was by an actual scientist who was an NAZI who worked with the UK MOD, Ministry of Defense. When he read that, he said, "That's impossible. No one's eyes are purple." Then he scanned my eye. He said, "Oh my God, Rainetta, your eyes are purple." I said, "Yeah, I told you. Why would they lie? They're a proper bonded investigator."
Well, how big? Where is the alien implant located?
I'm getting to that, right?
Okay.
So that's the eyes. The cybernetics in my head go from here all the way back. Okay? Here all the way back. This cybernetics, I believe, is the US government. Okay? And when I say US government, I literally mean not Congress. I mean the government no one ever sees. Right? So that's the head. What the US government also did is they had my dentist implant me with a tracking device in this tooth. Until finally the tooth, I was tricked into getting the tooth removed. And then they said, no, there's something wrong with your tooth. We need to, remove the tooth. So I said to him, let me see a mirror so I can see. So I held the mirror up and I said, "Where's my tooth decay?" Because it's there, it's decaying. You don't want an infection. We have to remove the tooth. But it was a trick to get rid of my healthy, natural tooth and replace it with a tracking device. And that was US government as well. The main system, and we're talking alien, the main alien system that goes back to, and I'm not afraid to say it, and I don't care because the US government knows I'm telling the truth. It goes back to Egypt. It goes back to Atlantis, and it goes back to a weapon in deep space. I don't care because I am sick of being a fucking hostage to ETs that work with the US government. Let me continue. So the system that's in the left side of my body, well, this system is not the US government. The one in my vagina is the US government. This one on the left side of my body is the alien Egyptian Atlantean technology from Atlantis and Egypt, ancient Egypt. Then we go into my vagina. In my vagina, under the endothelial lining, that is where our lovely government put the US government alien technology. Okay? And it's a system that is designed, my body was used to build the coming digital slave system. Let me say it again. Every part of the New World Order, every jot, every tittle, every dot, every cross T, my body was used to build it, down to your digital banking system. All of it was built on my body. Then we get to my ankle, and my ankle had a signal, and this was told to me by a NAZI scientist. The signal coming from my ankle, I should say his girlfriend, can only be found under the Mariana Trench. Let me say that again. Not the bottom of the Pacific, under the bottom of the Pacific. Meaning, this is the bottom of the Pacific, this is the Mariana Trench. Let me show you in the screen, okay? So bottom of the Pacific, under the Mariana Trench. That was coming from my ankle. The signal, when he went to look up the specs of this signal, the signal was coming from deep space, meaning there are no systems in the most advanced satellite systems in our solar system that the signal coming from my ankle matched. Okay.
I have a question for you, Rachel. Now you mentioned that you have the alien technology in your birth canal, and then you have this other technology on your abdomen.
Yes.
Is that, and what is the purpose for now? If they realize that you had the initial alien implant, why didn't they just remove it then, and then they put in the U.S. government one?
Okay. I don't think they could remove it. Okay. The reason why I say that is because I'm assuming that they wanted to find out how this thing worked. So they wanted to get as close to it as possible to kind of monitor how it worked. Okay. So basically, the US government was tracking me and, might I add, updating the chip in my vagina. Because when I was 15, that wasn't the only time the US government implanted me. I was also re-implanted when I ended up in a hospital. I think 19. Then again, when I came back from England, I woke up on a hospital bed in a pool of blood again. And I'm like, why do I keep waking up in a pool of blood? These damn hospitals. And it's not a menstrual cycle. So my logic now is they were removing the old technology, putting in the updated technology, and then stitching the endothelial lining. The reason why I deduce this is because I just got back finally after a year. I finally got back my medical reports for a gynecological exam. And for many years, I said, I'm sick and tired of you people putting shit in my vagina, excuse my language. So I'm not seeing any of you crazy people. But I had to go to the gynecologist and I had him examine me. And the reports came back. They said, we found a strange scar, a strange lesion on the endothelial wall and on the left side of the endothelial wall. And I said, that's where they put the implants. Okay, that's where they put the implants and kept putting the updated implants. So that one is government, and I believe government alien technology. And the reason why I say I'm dealing with purely alien technology and I'm telling you this for a reason, that's directly associated with Egypt, with Atlantis, and now I'm learning with Lemuria, because the Lemurian chip was in my ankle. The Atlantean Egyptian system, not microchips. The Atlantean Egyptian system is on the left side of my body, and then the US government alien technology is inside my vagina to the left. And then the cybernetics, which goes back to the US government, we can pick them up on the US FCC data allocation spectrum. So this can be picked up with the FCC data allocation spectrum. Inside my vagina can be picked up on the US data allocation spectrum. My left side is deep space under the Mariana, deep space. And then the bottom is under my left ankle is the bottom of the Mariana Trench.
I have another question for you.
Yeah.
Do you think other classmates of yours were targeted as well and had implants? Because girls, in high school, you may have a buddy and you like talk and things like that. Did anybody else mention to you that something they were experiencing strange phenomena in the body, or things that you were encountering?
No, no. I had a pretty, apart from brain scrambling, and all of a sudden I went from like honors classes to like being regular, meaning they were changing my brain pattern to lower my IQ. And I'm going to say this to Black people: let no one tell you you have a low IQ. Let me say that again. You don't have a low IQ, okay? And the reason why I know this for a fact is because when it comes to muscle density, okay, Black people have the most muscle density, the ability to build muscle faster than anybody else. Not only that, depending on what part of the African continent you come from, east or west, they either have dominant fast twitch muscles or slow twitch muscles, which are used for certain types of sports. You're not going to convince me that people that have the capability of building muscle and have muscle memory combined with rapid motor skills are going to have a low IQ. Now, granted, the brain is fact, but at the same time, we know from research done by the CDC, and I'm saying this for a reason, we know research done by the CDC using Black babies, Asian babies, Caucasian babies, and Spanish babies. This is research done. When it came to muscle memory, motor skills, and cognition, the CDC and NIH noted that Black children dominated. They didn't just excel in terms of cognition and motor skills, dominated by a very large percentage all the other babies. That same CDC NIH study stated that when the Black children who were dominating in both cognition and motor skills reached the age of 9, there was a dramatic descent. Now, why am I saying that? I am saying that because they literally were decreasing my intelligence, and they were using technology to do it. And that is something I am pissed at. So I just wanted to put that in there.
Wow, I'm glad that you shared that, because you figure that, you know, the mind and the body, you wouldn't have a sophisticated body and have an inferior mind to run it.
A person is not going to fire off millions of neurons. Let me show you what I mean. An athletic person, a person who dominates in athleticism, is literally firing off millions of neurons, performing high computational algorithms in their brain just to make a single move, and the single move repeatedly in different scenarios. You're not going to tell me a person who can dominate in athletics is inferior in terms of not brain power, but education. Why? Because the similar amount of firing off of the brain that it requires for you to get a ball into a hoop, you're performing very advanced mathematical trigonometric. Understand what I'm showing you, because this shit pisses me to hell off at how evil these people are. I'm sorry. This is why I don't do TI stuff. I'm not a TI. I always say I'm trafficked, not targeted, trafficked. And this is what pisses me off. Okay? You're not going to be performing trigonometric functions. That is what it takes to get a ball in a net, people. Trigonometry. Okay? And you're performing trigonometric functions at a rate that is so advanced and at a short speed to get a ball into a net, and then turn around and tell me those people are intellectually inferior. Absolutely not.
I hear you. I hear you loud and clear. I have another question for you. What was the circumstances for you to go to the UK? Because you're at Martin Luther King High School.
I was at University at Buffalo. Mm-hmm.
Huh?
I was at University at Buffalo.
Okay.
The brain scrambling got worse. Mm-hmm. And I said to myself, I said, maybe I'm exhausted. Maybe this is not for me, because it was one of the best schools for biochemistry. It was a very difficult school. So I said to myself, maybe I need to go in a study abroad program. And that's when I enrolled in a study abroad program. But here's the thing.
You had a school counselor that you addressed this issue to that recommended?
No, I didn't. No, I'm being honest. We didn't talk about mental health. It wasn't mental health.
I mean, like when you enter a college and you're trying to find out, what would be a better plan for you to discuss what other schools that may,
No, I didn't do that. I made the decision to study abroad, and I realized that I was under brain entrainment. I was entrained to go to England. The reason why
I didn't know what that means.
Brain entrainment is when they lock in on your brain waves. Okay, so basically, they scan your brain waves. They know exactly the signals your brain is producing, so they can clone your brain waves. Okay, and then after cloning, after they isolate your brain waves with the chips at the time, they can clone your brain waves, meaning make a copy of it. And then once the cloning process is done, they can entrain your brain with their thoughts subliminally.
I understand.
So I look back and I realize I was being brain and trained to go to England. And I have my reasons for saying that.
Mhm.
And I have valid reasons for saying that I don't mind sharing, because I don't give a bleep at this point in time. You have to excuse me, I really don't. So I was brain and trained, I believe, to go to England. And when I got to England, I said to myself, I said, oh my God, I don't know what's happening to me. Now look at this. How could I be? Do you want to know what my GPA was at the University of Buffalo? It was a 2.0. When I went to England, it was a 1 point something. When I came back to the United States and I went back to school, okay, my GPA was a 3.9. But I wasn't going to school for science. I was going to school for business. And for 1 or 2 semesters, I think it was 1 or 2, it went to 4.0. Okay. I think it might have been, let me, on the safe side, for 1 semester, it was a 4.0. Okay. That's how much brain entrainment I was under. Okay.
Wait, I just want to get the time sequence. You went to school in Buffalo for how many semesters?
2 semesters.
And there,
Mhm.
you started out with a 4.0 and then it went down, you're saying?
No. I was already under brain entrainment from
Okay.
high school. I
Okay.
didn't know what it was. It
Okay.
was called, someone who understands these weapons explained to me that this was called brain scrambling technology.
Mhm.
Okay, meaning they would hit the person with ultra low frequencies. Okay, because they, remember I said to you the process. The process was you map their brain waves. Now your brain waves are not in your head; they are outside of your head, right? So they map the brain wave, the area of the brain that's producing these waves. Okay. After they map it to get to know how your brain works, they have to clone it. It's called cloning. Okay. The third part is heterodyning the brain waves. Okay. So that's when they clone your brain waves, they run it through a supercomputer, they understand how your brain thinks. Now's the part for heterodyning. So they cloned it, which is an artificial Reinetta's brain outside of her head. Now, if we want to remotely influence Reinetta's behavior, we're going to take the cloned brain waves, change the behavioral patterns, and then target Reinetta's brain with a cloned heterodyned brainwave.
Okay. So you were you were an honor student in high school.
Yes.
Then when you went to Buffalo, that's when the scrambling, and then you
No,
thought,
the scrambling
okay,
started after I took the Regents. It
yes,
got worse in
yes,
Buffalo. I
yes.
thought I was exhausted. So I said, let me take a study abroad program. And then I got accepted into a study abroad program. Funny enough,
And what was
I
the
applied
major?
for Oxford. Sorry.
What was the major though, in Buffalo and the UK?
Buffalo, I wanted to do molecular microbiology. I explained to you they didn't have that program, but the dean said to me, he said, if you could produce the grades, we would get you into the program. We would create a program for you of molecular and microbiology, micro and molecular biology. But by then, my brain, my ability was like, it kept going down, 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 down. So what I did is I said, look, my electives I could take in my study abroad. The European system, Erasmus, is totally different from the American system. In Europe, they already know what they want to do. They're already in those systems. Okay. So you can't really, and they don't really switch. They go through it. Right. So what I did is I said, I'm going to take my electives when I go to England, because I'm like, if I can't like, my brain wasn't functioning. When I got to England, it got worse. It went like, it was worse.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
tell the story when you were
Mhm.
heading up to Buffalo. You were on the bus.
Uh-huh.
Please talk about that story. You mentioned it in one of your past videos, and I would like for you to share that.
Sure. So when I was, oh God, it was my first semester in Buffalo, and I used to take Buffalo University of Buffalo. And by the way, for anyone saying that I made this up, do you know that the CIA MK Ultra program and 149 sub projects under MK Ultra? Do you know where that program was being conducted? The University of Rochester. Okay? So for anyone telling me that these universities are not conducting these types of experiments, not you guys, because you guys are knowledgeable, spare me. When the church committee discovered the 150 projects, MK Ultra, and the 149 sub-projects that the CIA was conducting at the University of Rochester with, Rockefeller money, they allegedly had the program shut down. My university, University of Buffalo, was not far from the University of Rochester. The University of Rochester was also conducting under Dr. Ewing Cameron, another Rothschild. And this is why I say to people, if you are Black, get your children out of these goddamn schools. Now, because they are targeting them, Black children go into these schools, and I'm not going to make this about Black because they're doing it to whites too. They're doing it to everybody. But there's a disproportionate amount of Black people that they heterodyne and they turn violent to violent criminals using brain cloning and heterodyning. And I believe they're doing it in the schools. And we know for a fact Dr. Ewan Cameron was conducting his experiments at the University of Rochester, not far from the University of Buffalo, with Canadian patients. Okay? And those people sued, and it took them 50 years, and the CIA was hoping for them to all die off. It took them 50 years to win that lawsuit, and the CIA gave them crumbs. This was being done at the University of Rochester. Not only that, the one guy, his name was John Storm, who was the first Ultra built by the US government for the Vietnam War, was built in the university as a slave, as a soldier to fight asymmetric warfare, jungle terrain warfare. Okay? His name was John Storm. And he was one of the main people who helped me understand the technology in my brain that the government put in my brain, because the technology in my head is not alien. It's government technology. Oh, I almost made a mistake. The technology in my head is 2 here and then 1 here. So it's 5. In his brain, it's 8. Okay? He was built by the university, by the US government in the University of Rochester. Okay? John Storm is his name. And he was built to fight psionic warfare and jungle warfare in Vietnam. The government never compensated him, used him as a slave, trained him to be a killer, and then dropped him like a hot fudge sundae. And then I discovered he died. He died last year. He was one of the first people, when he saw my x-rays, he explained to me exactly what it was. He said, Rainetta, do not let any doctor tell you this is calcium deposits. And then he showed me his brain chip by the US government, which is 2 parallel lines, 4 chips in each line. Mine is 2 parallel lines, 2 chips in both. Luckily for him, he knew the program the US government put him in, which was MK Ultra Delta, and it's called an Ultra Soldier. So the name Super Soldier is actually inaccurate. It's not Super Soldiers. They're called Ultra. And the reason why, well, his category is called an Ultra. And the reason why he's called an Ultra is because when they activate an Ultra, they do not stop until the mission is completed. He was built in Rochester. Do you want to understand why I hate New York? Because 99% of this FUCKERY is being conducted with money from the tribe in these universities in New York. Now, New York is not the only one because we have the reports. Over 100 universities participate in this. Over 100 universities, of which Harvard and MIT are at the top.
I see. I see. You had mentioned in an older interview when you were headed to. I'm not sure whether it was your first.
Yes,
Whether it was your first day to.
No, it wasn't my first day. Let me talk about that. Thank you for that. So she asked me the question about when I took the bus from New York to Buffalo. I forgot to answer. Now, I was young. It was my second semester, so I was taking the bus by myself. And from New York to Rochester, I think it's 200, Buffalo was 200 miles. And I was sitting on the right-hand side of the bus. And I remember as soon as the bus pulled out of the bus terminal, I remember a car from New York all the way until we got to a rest stop. But I can't remember where the rest stop was. You have to excuse me. I can't remember the city. And the bus driver was like, okay, time to get off the bus, take a break, yada, yada, yada. But I remember what the area looked like. It probably doesn't look like that today, but it was like a strip mall, okay? A huge shopping center. When I got off the bus, that is what I remember. When the bus pulled in to the rest stop, the mall, the car that was to the right of the bus pulled in also. I said, that's strange. I said, that car pulled in, I was like, that car followed us from New York. I was young and stupid, naive, didn't know these things went on. So when I got off the bus, the guy was there to meet me. And he goes, hello, my name is, I totally forgot his name. And I go, oh my God. I said, that's the guy when we pulled out of New York, like 100 and something miles back. I said, that's the guy that was on the right. He goes, my name is so-and-so. I don't remember his name, but I can tell you what he was wearing. You know the Elmer Fudd hunting shirt that Elmer Fudd wears, and a lot of like hunting people wear this shirt, the red and black checkered hunting shirt. He had on red and black hunting shirt, and he had on Lee jeans, not Levi, male Lee jeans. I remember that. Okay. And I remember when he said to me, my, you're beautiful. He said, can I give you my pager number? Because at the time, people didn't have cell phones. Well, unless he was filthy rich. They had pagers. So I said, okay, sure. But I'm thinking in the back of my head, what? You followed the bus? You see, I was young. I was like, I went to college early. I was 17. At the time, I could have been 18. I said to myself, okay, fine. Yeah, sure. So he gave me his pager number and he goes, call me sometime. He goes, you're very beautiful. But I was young, and not to mention I was skinny as hell. I was like 90 pounds. Okay, I was very feeble. I remember when he looked at me, I kept saying to myself, I said, this man has the bluest eyes I've ever seen. I said, oh my goodness. And I came from New York. New York, you see everything. You see the blondest hair, the bluest eyes, the darkest skin, yada, yada, yada. I kept looking at the guy and I'm like, oh my goodness, his eyes are really, really blue. And they were like this really unusual blue. They were so blue. I was like, that's strange. Then I looked up at his head and I go, oh my goodness, that's the blondest hair I've ever seen. And I was like, that's strange because, I've seen blonde hair, whether it's dyed blonde or it's a natural blonde. And I was like, oh my goodness, I've never seen blonde hair like this. I was like, this is the blondest hair I've ever seen. So he saw me like staring at him like, oh my goodness, your hair is really blonde. Your eyes are really blue. Anyway, so after he gave me his pager, he got back in his car and then we got back on the bus. I never saw him after that. So that was my experience, whatever. I don't know. I don't know what that was about,
I
but
see.
that stuck in my head for some reason.
So you think maybe he had any ties
I think it was
with the
part of the
school?
network. I
Uh-huh.
think he was part of the network.
I see.
Yeah. And he
Okay.
was definitely, he didn't give off the NAZI vibes, but he did give off the Aryan features, you
I
know.
see.
So, when I later learned that he could have been a pure-blooded Aryan, I'm like, what the hell are the Aryans wanting to do with a black woman? You people are crazy. That's a whole other ball game of being chased across the planet by NAZIs.
I see. I see. So okay, now you're back in the UK. Your first trip to the UK. Tell us the incident that happened to you when it was an orientation at your new school.
Oh, oh, you just connected a major dot. Listen,
Yeah.
hold on. I need to like answer the door. Do you mind
Yeah.
holding for a minute?
No problem.
Okay.
Yes, so I hope you find this story very, very interesting. Again, I've been following Rainetta Jones over the internet since 2017, and I'm fascinated about her stories because, like, we both live in New York City. Well, she used to live in New York City, and I still live in New York City, and I've had experiences of being followed. And um, I was followed once in the West Indies, and I'm sorry, my dog is making noise. Cut it out, baby. Yeah, I was followed before, and so it was just very eerie that like the person followed me for 2 hours in their car. I was taking one of the local buses, and then right beside me, I noticed a car and an individual, a man inside, and he looked very. He was a local fellow, a person of color, but he followed me for 2 hours in the car because when I got out to my stop, he got out of the car to walk towards me, and he was saying what he was saying. So it just reminded me of that incident and the scrambling. I remember in high school, it seems like people get um, like I think with women in general, I think from elementary school, junior high school, I think females, generally do better than boys. But then when high school comes in, it's like a dumbing down, and all of a sudden the male students start to they're being promoted more, and so I think this is a part of social engineering. You know, um, it's one of those awful things that could happen to people. And I'm reasoning also, like I have Renetta Jones on to really to. Oh, okay, she's back now. Let me get Renetta back. Okay,
Hi.
yeah. So yeah, continue what you were saying with the. You were talking about the trip to Buffalo, the
They
watch.
my
And
first
then,
time in
and
the
then you
U.
went to the UK and that meeting.
So my first day, I went to England when I decided to do a study abroad in England. And we had this orientation of where all the students would go for orientation, right? Sorry, let me just turn this here. So in this orientation room, it was about maybe 500 students. It could have been more, but I just don't remember. And I remember I walked up and I was looking around the room for some black people, because I'm black. I'm like, okay. And I saw a group of like black girls. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go sit in front of them, right? And they spoke English, which was great. They were all from Nigeria. And I said, okay, I'm gonna go sit in front of them because I don't know anybody here. It's my first time in a foreign country. I was 19. So right before orientation starts, in walks the most drop at the time. I don't know what he looks like now. the most drop dead gorgeous man. He was German. You ever saw in your life. This is my first time in England, okay, in a foreign country outside of like Trinidad. No, that's not true because I went to Canada, but traveling like long distance away from home. This man was so physically gorgeous that the women, even the black girls behind me, they were like, like he took their breath away. He was that gorgeous. All the women went, and God is my witness. Some of the women were so like taken aback at how gorgeous this man physically was that they literally like needed to sit down. Like, I don't want to say they fainted, but it was kind of like they fainted. And I'm watching this scene and he walked in right before the orientation was about to start. He walks in. It's my first day in England. He looks around the room and then he goes, walks up the steps in front of everybody, sits down right next to me, puts out his hand and goes, "My name is so-and-so. I'd like to be a friend." My first day in England. You there?
Wow, yes, I am. Yes,
Yeah.
I am. Now, this person, did you meet with him again after this introduction?
Yeah, long story short is we kind of had an on and off relationship, which was the weirdest thing I've ever experienced. I don't want to go into detail about that. But
Go ahead.
no,
Go ahead.
no, 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 no. Not with who his family is. No. What I will say is this, and I'm not going to mention his name. What I will say is this. He told me that his dad was an international lawyer for the German government, and one of the, oh my goodness, his dad was a, how did I not? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. His dad was an international lawyer for the German government. His dad was also an international lawyer for the UN. I just realized that I worked when I went to the UN in the legal department. And my first day on the job at the UN, a German guy they had this little party for me, and a German guy came to the party, introduced himself, and he said, "Nice to meet you. Who's your family?" And I said, "Who's my family?" I said, "My family is not into politics and international politics." No, they're not. He said to me, I said, "Who's your family?" And I said to him, "I told you, my family is not involved in international politics." He looked at me with this look of disgust, like, "If you say so," got up and walked right out the door, and I never saw him at the UN after that. That just dawned on me. Here's the thing. When I went to go work at the UN, I noticed I was getting some hostile treatment from some of my co-workers. So I couldn't figure out. I said to myself, why are they being so nasty? By the way, the UN is where I found out I was under surveillance. I'm being hit with I'm not even going to tell you the amount of radiation they ran through my body, but that's later. But the UN, hold on, I got to keep track of the time. Calm down. Now, when I was working at the UN, one of the things that was told to me was, I worked at the UN because seniority and titles are very important, kind of like the military. It's the same thing. It's run the same way. Seniority and titles and deferring to senior, those who are senior, to you.
Yeah, your account with the UN. I want to save that for another conversation because
No,
I
but this
want.
is important because this ties
Oh,
out to the German.
okay.
Yeah, I'll
Go
get
ahead.
back to the German, but this is important because I just realized there's a connection between the UN and the German. Because the German that I met when I was 19, his dad worked for the German government, and his dad worked as one of the lawyers for the UN. Now here's the crazy part. When I got accepted to work at the UN, I was a G3, so I wasn't on any classified, all the documents classified or whatever. You don't disclose information about what you do, period, no matter what your level. But I was a general 3, so there was nothing, nothing special about my position. But I noticed I was receiving hostility from some of my coworkers, but I couldn't figure out what it was. So we were told by the people in the white building to put you upstairs. So I was like, people in the white building? Well, the people in the white building. When they realized that I was clueless about the power structure of the UN, they started sympathizing with me. So, and I believe that they put me up there because they wanted to radiate me better because I was more isolated, right? Come to find out that where they put me at the UN was above my security clearance. And I didn't find out until someone pitied me, like, this girl doesn't have a goddamn clue what's going on. So I was like, seriously, we're like, what's going on? And they were literally like, Rainetta, you don't understand where you are? I said, no, I'm at the UN. They go, Rainetta, do you understand the area they put you at the UN? I go, no. They said, this is a high security area, and the secretaries here work for high level diplomats. I go, really? What the hell am I doing here? But it wasn't until her line of questioning that made me connect the German who followed the bus to the stop. And then when I left Buffalo and went to the UK, the German who came to the orientation, and later we became like boyfriend and girlfriend, which was really strange. I mean, really strange. He, it tied out to the German because I didn't realize the two of them could have been German. And then tying it out to the UN because his dad worked at the UN. And he told me, he said, Rainetta, he said, I will monitor you for the rest of your life. Like, he told me that. And I'm like, are you serious? He goes, yeah. He said, I will keep an eye on you for the rest of your life. And I didn't realize until I tied out working in the legal department at the UN to him, who is now an international lawyer.
Right, the man in Europe that you met in the
Yeah,
auditorium, that person said that he's going to monitor you or follow you from
yeah,
now on.
yeah.
I see.
He asked me to marry him. And I was like, no. But I asked him a question. I said, let me ask you a question. I said, I was very blunt, very honest, and I think that's what he liked about me because Germans are very reserved and that shit drives me crazy. But I asked him, I said, let me ask you a question. I said, you want me to marry you? I said, do you have any NAZI, background at all? And his response was, we went to school together, but I wasn't studying law. My God, when I tell you this man was brilliant, he had like 10 brains in his head, but that's a story for another day. I asked him, I said, I just need to make sure. I said, any NAZIs in your family? He looked at me. This is a guy who asked me to marry him. And he said to me, he said, during the NAZI occupation, he said, everybody was an NAZI. You didn't have a choice. I was like, oh, okay. That was his response. Now, my question was, what the hell would an NAZI? What? An NAZI attracted to a black? Okay, attraction. You can't help attraction. Okay, that I get. I said, but an NAZI wanting to marry someone black? I said, is there something here I don't understand? And then there was the tribe members. Yeah.
So
Whatever.
tell us, when you started the school in the UK, what
Uh-huh.
what what were you majoring there,
I,
and what happened? What was the circumstances of what did you incur for your first semester there at the school, and what people were you meeting?
okay, one of the things that was one of the best experiences of my life. But I look back and I have to ask myself, was I surrounded by them? You know, I met some of the most amazing people, like amazing. It was the best experience of my life ever, you know. But I have to ask now, looking back, was I surrounded by these people? You know, it was so crazy. My girlfriends, and I'm just being honest with you. Look, I don't do the whole beauty stuff. Like my girlfriend, my friend at the time, she looked like a gazelle. Actually, she won a beauty pageant because she was, that beautiful. I mean, 6'1", 120 pounds, just sheer beauty, way more beautiful than me. So I just couldn't understand, like, but then again, she was very slim. But one of the things that kept happening to me was every single day, I kept having some guy trying to propose to me. Like, God is my witness. They would leave notes under my door, and I wasn't even having sex when I was in school in Sheffield. Forget it. It didn't happen. But one of the things that kept happening to me was I would come back from class and there would be like notes glued to my door, notes under my door, and every single day, and I was just like, oh my God. So okay, okay, okay. All right, listen, I actually have to run, but I'm going to wrap up with this story because I got to get out of here. So, long story short is, this is what was happening to me. I mean, they kept leaving notes on my door. Rainetta, marry me, marry me, marry me, marry me. But here's the crazy part. The children, the Africans and the Europeans that I went to school with, and this is not something I talk about, they came from the upper crust parts of their society. I'm going to leave that there. Okay? And the Africans that I went to school with, they were the richest. They came from the well-to-do African families. Like they were not getting money to.
So with that, to try to wrap it up with your
Yeah.
with your stay in the UK, and then you eventually come back.
I have to close
Oh,
out. I have to go.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Renetta,
Thank
for
you.
this time, and I hope we're able to do a part two.
Yeah, part two. Yeah, sounds good. As long as
Okay.
I have the time, I
Yeah.
can do a part two. It could probably be like 2 weeks
Okay.
because I have a lot of things I have to get done. But I really have to run.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yes. Enjoy, enjoy, enjoy. I'll get
Thank
in
you.
contact with you in 2 weeks. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, people, for watching. And wow, what do you think about all this? Yes, she's encountered many, many things, and she has a long journey, and I wish to share this with my viewers on my channel, and to try to uh, encourage other people who think that they too may have gone through some type of targeting or some may call it human trafficking, being trafficked, technologically trafficked to do things, and you may have memory loss, gaps in memory with regard to certain events, and then one day you started remembering certain, getting clues and things like that. So I hope you enjoyed this. I'm going to end this live stream. I appreciate you all for coming on board and sharing in this event. Peace, love, and joy to you all. And when there is a part two to be discussed, I will let you guys know then. Take care and enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye bye.